thank you for taking time out of your day to talk about your new book. And I don't know, I don't think we've spoken before.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I didn't know that your dad was an FBI agent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
25 years.
So he retired from the Bureau.
Well, yeah, kind of. He became the legat in London
Uh-huh.
and then became the director of Interpol in the States
Oh, very
after
cool.
that. So I think technically you're still an FBI agent if you're the director of Interpol. He still worked for the FBI, and then he retired from there.
Well, if he had credentials, then yeah, he was still an FBI agent.
Yeah,
That's
I think
for sure.
they like at Interpol, they take turns. So like the director will be the head of ATF and then will be like the head of CI, like, or somebody from the ATF, somebody from CI or something. And it was
That's
the FBI's turn, as I recall. It was a long time ago.
yeah, that's very cool. What did he do after that? Did he retire after that point or?
Yeah, he retired young. I mean, he'd been in since he was a kid, so he retired when he was like 52, 53 or something.
Yeah.
And went into consulting, probably was a consultant for 10 years or something. And then now he just floats around in his pool.
Yeah, I've been retired for about a year and a half now. So I was 54 when I retired
When you retired.
from the Bureau. Yeah.
It's one of the nice things about the Bureau. You get
I
out
know.
really young, like way younger than me. It's kind of funny to think my dad was way younger than I am now when he retired.
Yeah. Well, it gives you an opportunity to embark on a second career. So
Yeah, for sure.
that's kind of what I'm doing.
Which office did you retire out of?
WFO, the Washington field office. My first office was Miami.
Oh, yeah. Did you move
Yeah.
around a lot?
Not really.
No?
Just two offices.
Oh, wow. For your whole
Yeah,
career.
it's not like the old days where they would move you around pretty frequently. I mean, if you wanted to these days, you could spend your entire career in one field office if you really wanted to do that.
Oh, wow. No, I remember our friends, you get the 30-day letter.
Yeah.
Like you report to work, you live in Oregon, you report to work in Washington, 30 days.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I guess the idea back then was, you get people moved around to different field offices and you broaden their perspective and their experiences. I mean, I can see the logic behind it. Of course, it's not great for your family necessarily, but I can see from the Bureau's perspective why you'd want to do that.
I mean, now it's really changed. Before, like when I was growing up, most of the wives didn't work. Women didn't work that much. So it wasn't that hard. But, if your wife's a brain surgeon or your husband's a brain surgeon and you're an FBI agent and they suddenly want to move you, it's not that easy, probably.
Yeah, that creates a problem.
Yeah. I mean, these were the Hoover days. So that was a long time ago.
Well, hey, your book that's coming out, Code Red, I have really thoroughly enjoyed it. I have a question though, just kind of a stylistic question, I guess, and I'm really curious. It's some dialogue that you have, where essentially one of your characters is a French-speaking character, Claudia, and Mitch Rapp's significant other,
Right.
and you use a dialogue device and you just say she switched to her native French and then you gave the English. And I was curious about that because I've seen it, both ways. I've seen authors actually go and put in like the French the French verbiage, but I don't know. I think I kind of like the way you're doing it better.
I think if it's really short,
Yeah,
like, whatever, Ola or whatever, wherever, that's great. But they have long conversations in the foreign language, which I think would be everybody be in Google Translate trying to figure it out.
yes, for sure.
But I will do it, if I have like a Spanish speaking character and it's very short. And I feel like Americans are pretty accustomed to hearing Spanish. So if it's simple, get the gist. But yeah, I think that's probably the only way to do it with Claudia.
Well, I liked it. I appreciated you doing it that way. I've seen it done other ways, and I think it pulls you out of the narrative when you have to go and try to figure out what this person is actually saying. So I really like it.
Works in movies because you can subtitle it.
Yes, that's right.
But not great in books.
Actually, I kind of prefer the subtitles in movies as opposed to a voiceover.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I listen to a lot of stuff that's voiced over, and it definitely changes the flavor of it.
Absolutely. One little question I had, because I used to live out west of Manassas, and you've got his residence located somewhere out in the rural area west of Manassas. I used to live in Linden. Did you have Did you have a particular place in mind, maybe out toward Front Royal, or?
Yeah, kind of like it's honestly, I think of Linden like or kind of in that sort of area where it finally gets more mountainous.
Yeah.
Like out in that direction. Yeah, my wife's family live in Waynesboro.
Oh,
And
okay.
she's from Covington.
Okay.
And near the West Virginia border. And I went to James Madison University.
Ah, gotcha.
Like, and my dad was in DC for a long time.
Uh-huh.
So, or not long time, I guess 4 years. But so yeah, I was kind of familiar with that area.
Okay.
I figured Mitch wouldn't live. I couldn't picture him living in the city.
Yeah, I couldn't quite picture that either. But thank you for satisfying my curiosity about that.
Yeah, I used to go shoot skeet out there when I was in high school.
Oh, did you?
Manassas, but it was a lot. Back then it was a lot more rural.
Oh yeah.
You got very far out 66, which was a fairly new road, as I recall it back then, and there wasn't anything out there. Now,
no, not a.
Seems like it goes on. DC area goes on forever.
Well, that Linden, which it probably was just a gas station back then, if that, has actually developed into a nice little community. So yeah, a lot
of it's like really beautiful out there too.
Yes, it is.
Just a long commute.
Yeah. Well, I was assigned to the Attorney General's protection detail for a while, and I had to commute from Linden into DC early in the morning, and it wasn't too bad. It was actually 1 hour and 5 minutes right on the nose from my door to the parking garage at DOJ. So not a horrible commute.
As long as you're not going like right at rush hour, it's probably not too bad.
Yes, that was the key. That was the key. So I know your dad was a bureau guy. How exactly did you get started with writing thrillers? I know this is this your 22nd thriller?
23rd, I think.
23rd?
Yeah, 22nd. This is the 22nd book in the Mitch Rapp series.
Okay.
But I think I've written 23.
23?
Yeah, I'm not one of those people that always aspired to be a writer, to be honest with you. I was working in corporate banking, and I was a really serious rock climber back in the day.
Really?
And those are kind of the two things I did with my life. And I'd always wanted to do something creative. So I had kind of come up with the idea I was going to like build furniture. And my wife didn't like the idea. She said I wasn't very handy, which was true. And we live in Wyoming, and she didn't want, I think, me to fill the entire garage up with tools, so she had to park out in the snow.
Right.
So she's the one that said, well, you love to read, why don't you write a novel? And I don't know, I have an economics degree, so it didn't seem like a very good fit, but I don't know, kind of got in the back of my head, and I thought, well, I know so many people, I love thrillers, and I know so many people in that business, and this was before the internet. So, it's kind of lucky, I could, if I wanted to know something about like what the CIA director's office looked like, I could call him. I'd known him for a long time. So,
That's an advantage. That's a definite plus. Yeah.
yeah, it was, calling my first book was about the drug trade. So knowing people in the DEA and all that. So I thought, yeah, that'd be really fun. And, my mom will probably read it or something. And
Uh-huh.
then it'll go in a drawer. But, it turned out pretty good, I thought. And, my dad even liked it, and he's criticizes everything I've ever done. So I thought, well, geez, maybe I should try to get it published. And that's a long and soul crushing process, but it got published and became a national bestseller. And I had never planned on writing a second one, but I got roped into it, and it's like 23 books later, here I am.
Well, you talked about, a long soul crushing process, which is, I hear that quite often. And my wife is the communications director for Andy Andrews, who I think you spoke to.
Yeah.
Before. And he talks about how difficult it was to get his first book published. How many rejection letters did you get, or do you even recall that at this point? I mean,
well, I don't know how many it was, but I could tell you this is also back. I mean, I'm dating myself, but you had to like send letters in.
Right.
It wasn't like now I'm sure you just send an email in with an attachment and all that, but it wasn't like that. And I had a bulletin board on the wall. I had written, the wall of shame, and I'd put every rejection letter, and it got so heavy it fell off the wall. And
really?
that's literally true. It fell off the wall onto the floor, and I still have them somewhere. But persistence and all that. I was lucky, basically. So, but it was hard back then just to get somebody to read something, because, if you have some sort of background in writing, it's much easier. But I was kind of like, hey, I just decided to write a novel. I'm a banker.
Right.
And, would you like to read it? I think it's pretty good. Well, no, the answer is no. I did not want to read it. But you just got to keep after it, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like the writing business is an exercise in persistence for sure.
Yeah. And, most people write a lot of books before they get one published, or they write a book that's, somebody sees something in, but they want a complete rewrite. And that, I mean, I would have never done it. So, honestly, like I said, I kind of wrote the book on a lark. So I had never planned on writing a second one. It was just something I did for fun. And I've been just incredibly lucky, because even like really, really successful writers that I know, way more successful than me, huge New York Times bestsellers, will tell you about the 5 books they have in their drawer that are crap and they'll never put out. Or I sent 4 to this agent, and he's like, keep trying. I like your stuff, but this isn't very good. And they spent years before they hit on that book, and then have done, gone on to the top of the charts. So I was really lucky. And my book barely even got edited. I mean, they ended up having to kind of put it right into production, because they ended up with this hole in their schedule. And so the book, that like Rising Phoenix, for all its, beginner sloppiness, is pretty much the book I wrote.
Right. Well, that is really unusual, and that's a really interesting story. And I really like to talk to authors about, well, what happened in the beginning, because the way you're describing it, it's not an uncommon experience to have to be very persistent and to be able to deal with rejection. And Andy, in fact, one of the harshest letters that he received, which essentially said, "You're never going to get published. Give this up. It's not going to happen for you." Well, yeah, he framed it.
Yeah,
he framed it, and he's got it up in his studio. So several New York Times bestsellers later, it's inspirational, really, for other people to see that and to
Oh
recognize,
yeah,
you
it's
know.
funny. I was going to do that with one of my. I got that just the. It's funny because usually I get really good reviews. Like I
Mhm.
probably got 3 bad reviews my entire career, and I don't know for some reason, Book List just came out. I think it's just basically like the worst book ever written. Basically, it's pages and pages of just like crap. His characters are crap. His plotting is crap. It was like they went through every aspect you could have, of a novel and said it was the worst ever. And
Right.
and then it hit the New York Times list, and I thought I should just get the New York Times list and that review and put them in a frame.
Yeah, you should do
But I never
that.
did. I should.
You should do that. I have another question about your book, and it comes from one of the Russian characters, and he says, and speaking of America, its democracy was old and tired. Its citizens were sick of the responsibility it demanded. They thirsted for something new. I really liked that those sentences, and I thought, man, what a great, succinct statement of really what seems to be going on in America today.
Sadly, yeah,
Yeah.
I think his point of view is probably fairly valid. So, I mean, hopefully, we're just in a bit of a snit right now, and we'll pull out of it. We usually do,
Mm-hmm. Is
but it's an entree to our enemies for sure. A house
no
divided.
question, no question. And well, my question was specifically, is that essentially a statement of what your perception is about the malaise that we see in our country, especially with the younger our younger section of our population.
I think the anger that we feel, a lot of us feel now, I think is not well founded.
Mm-hmm.
I think because I travel a lot. I actually live. I'm in Spain. I live in Spain half the
Oh.
time, and I've come to appreciate how, for all its warts, how great America is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both sides really like to trash it, and the terrible economy and the crime and all of this stuff. And I think you should come to some other countries because
Yes.
it's pretty nice where you're living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I think there's just a real negativity from, I think it sells though. It sells, advertising dollars on for the media.
Yes.
It gets people fired up enough to get into vote, which
Mm-hmm.
is super important now. People don't change their mind anymore. It's motivating them to go vote. And
Right.
the madder you can get them, the better that is. And I
Right.
think that's leading us down a really tough path, that we don't appreciate what we have anymore. And the young people, I don't know, they're an interesting, because I wouldn't say I have much expertise on that. They see the world in a different way. They're technologically really savvy. They're going to change the world just like our generation did.
Mm-hmm.
As for better or for worse, I don't know. They live in a world that is so different than what I grew up in. And I don't just mean what that it's different. It is, but the rate of change.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't remember anything changing when I was young. Now we got a
Right.
couple more channels on TV.
Right.
Wow. But I mean nothing. You played records. It's just there wasn't anything going on.
Mm-hmm.
And now it seems like, I mean, as a thriller writer, I have to constantly anticipate what's it going to be like in a year. Well, even when I started, that's pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden, I have no idea. My God, Russia could invade Ukraine. Like you have no idea
Right.
what new technology. Cars are going to be driving themselves, and I'm going to be behind on that or whatever.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's it would be interesting to be young and come in, like grow up in this world that like is so slippery. You just can't. There's nothing to cling to. It's going to change. Next year it's going to be completely different. Oh, I'm going to study for this career in college, and then when you get out, oh, AI took it over. There are no
That's
people to
exactly
do this.
right. Well, Chat GPT has revolutionized even now the way writing gets done. And I just kind of watched from afar. I played around with it a little bit and have really just been shocked by the results. I mean, you can input some stuff into Chat GTP, and it'll spit out a 2,000 word essay in 6 seconds or so, and it's pretty darn good.
It is. I know. I'd never messed with it at all, and a friend of mine emailed me middle of the day. It had been snowing really hard, and he's like, "Let's go skiing." And I said, "Well, I got to work." And I don't know, like 5 minutes later, he sent a thing, and he had written, "Write a Mitch Rapp chapter in the style of Kyle Mills." And he's like, "Here you go, you're done. See you in an hour."
Yeah.
And I read it. It was like, oh, like shit,
it's pretty good, right?
Bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. So, man, trying to,
yeah, what's going to happen? I mean, my prediction has always been that I think this is really true. Going back to what, kind of the problems in America is that people are becoming, because they have so many specific channels they can go to, very uncomfortable with hearing any ideas that they don't believe in, that don't sort of dovetail with their belief system. And I've noticed that, like, it's night and day compared to when I started that 25 years ago or whatever it was. Night and day, how quickly people are to be offended on stuff that I never even thought of. I mean, call a gun an assault rifle, and man, you get hate mail left and right. And I'm like, but it's shorthand. It's like, you can't say like an HK-43, every time, right?
Right.
And as opposed to a hunting rifle. And, so I've always thought, they're going to get in there, they get these Chat GPT things. And then before you buy them, there'll be sliders. It'd be like, Mitch Rapp novel. How much sex do you like in it? You're like, I like a lot of sex. How much gun stuff? Nah, not very much. Swearing? Oh, not into swearing. And it'll write you your custom book. Where are you on the political spectrum?
Right.
And you'd be like, can we make Mitch Rapp gay? I'd be like, that.
Right.
And everybody will get their own like book. And you could do that. I mean, I could do that now with Chat GTP, right? Like, write a novel and then be like, edit this so that, whatever.
Yes.
Mitch Rapp is a woman.
Good.
Yeah. Michelle Rapp. And so it'll be interesting to see, but I think it's such a danger. I mean, I'm really unusual. I get my news from all over the place because, it's opposing viewpoints. You learn interesting things that you wouldn't have known before and all that. And I guess there's a real danger to zeroing in on one, whoever agrees with me, I'm going to, enter that echo chamber, and that's one of the things that's fun about reading novels is, maybe you do get another perspective.
Well, that used to be very much a part of the American experience, right? Being able to debate with someone who didn't agree with you. And even afterwards, even if you didn't come to a nice, tidy little resolution, you could still be friendly.
Yeah, exactly.
But that just doesn't seem to be the case anymore. I can think of a few reasons why, perhaps, but your practice of, trying to get your news and information from varied sources is a very good practice. I try to do that myself. And I mean, even if you're not looking to change your position, just being able to have an intelligent debate or discussion with someone else is a really valuable skill. And we're not teaching our kids that, and they're certainly not getting it in the public schools. That's for sure.
No, but it's so hard to be a teacher now, because if you try to teach both sides, then both sides hate you. Right? I mean, so they're like, no, just teach my side. So I don't know. It's interesting because I watch a lot of stuff here in Spain that's about the world or about the United States, maybe, but it's kind of interesting because there is no American perspective. They don't tell you what the Democrats think or what the Republicans think or, who's going to get elected, all that stuff. They're not interested because why would they be any more than
Yeah,
we're
right.
interested? Who becomes the head of Spain. So
Right.
you get a lot of interesting stuff where they just sort of explain, here's inflation. We're going to spend 20 minutes on it. This is
Mhm.
why it's happening. It's not Democrats. They don't care about that. Here's why it's happening. Here's how you fix it, or don't fix it, as the case may be. So, but that stuff, I don't think most people have the attention span for it anymore either. And
No,
they're
they
so
don't.
used to entertainment, fast, people shouting at each other. It's
Mhm.
fun. Watching somebody the minute a graph goes up, I assume that most people turn it off.
Yes, 100%. Well, critical thinking is not a very common skill these days. That's
No.
for sure. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. Let me ask you one more question. So, what's next? What's next for you? What's the next project? I know. I guess Don Bentley is taking over the Vince Flynn series,
Yep.
and I feel very confident that that's in really good hands. So I was glad to see that Don got that. But what's
Yeah.
next for you?
I have had a character that I wrote about many, many years ago named Fade, and he kind of died in the end of the book, but or he was shot. And when I wrote the book, I thought he was dead, and the fans freaked out, and it's like he's not dead. I know he's not dead, and I no, he's dead. And so it was just one book about him. And then I don't know, after a few years, I kept thinking about him. I loved the character. I love writing the character. And he's an ex-Navy SEAL, but he's really crazy. And he got into an altercation with the US government, killed a bunch of people, and sort of like decided he was doomed, and driving around in an old Cadillac convertible, blaring the Go-Go's, waiting for somebody to kill him. And and I started thinking, man, maybe he's just in a coma. And I ended up deciding that I'd been kind of writing down ideas forever, for a decade or something about him.
Yeah.
And I finally thought, it's time. I think the way the world is so ambiguous now and strange, I think it's a perfect time for his weird philosophy and sense of humor and stuff. He's the perfect character for it. So I decided I really wanted to resurrect him. And I'm a guy who can only write one book at a time.
Uh-huh.
So I wish I was like Don Bentley and all those guys, but can't do it. So yeah, I decided, I'm getting a little long in the tooth. It was probably time to leave the Mitch Rapp stuff in good hands and pursue this.
Well, good. Yeah, you did. You definitely left it in good hands. That's for sure. So for Mitch Rapp fans, I don't think they have a thing to worry about.
No, Don's gonna do a great job.
Yeah. Well, I very much appreciate your time, and it's
Pleasure.
really great talking to you, and look forward to doing it again sometime.
Yeah, hopefully next year. I haven't tried to get a publisher yet, but we'll see.